Hi, everybody. I think I'm a couple minutes late. I'm sorry. I was at a statewide staff meeting. But I'm here, and it's time for Frankenstein tea. And at my meeting, I drank my whole tea, so I have nothing, but I'm here in spirit. I hope everybody's having a good day. Hi, Dad. If you're returning to Frankenstein Tea, welcome back. Perhaps you've just found this program. So I'll give you, the quick intro here is that Frankenstein Tea is a daily program, 3 p.m. every day with me. I read short stories to you. They're stories for adult audiences. They vary widely. I'm reading something very contemporary today. We got this book. We got it last October, so we probably got it just as it came out too. But that's pretty new in the world of books, and it's a chance for you to, it's a little bit of a check-in, a little wellness check-in. How's everybody feeling? It's a chance for me to stay connected with you, and for you to stay connected with the library. I'm in yet another place in the library. I don't know if I've read here from yet. Yeah, you can see some cool old stuff in here. This is a beautiful old room. If we go all the way over, you can see my mom gave that scale. I don't know if you can see that. But yesterday was kooky. The lights kept going off and the birds were chirping, and I usually sit in a corner over there, and I like that. I brought a nice comfy chair over, but I couldn't stay connected during my meeting. The internet was funky, but I had pretty good luck at this place while I was just in my meeting, so I'm hoping it'll work for Frankenstein Tea. So it's a check-in. It's a time for you to drink tea or lament that you've already drank your tea. And the name Frankenstein Tea is a reference to Frankenstein, the book, and that is a permissible literature that could be recorded or read out loud. It meets copyright parameters for those sorts of deliveries. So it's about that, as well as this horrible time that we're in, this monster of a time. I am not reading a permissible read as far as copyright and monetization of my recording of this story. But of course, none of that happens in the library world, right? It's I'm not getting paid to read this. And in fact, I think it's actually a bonus to authors and publishers for me to highlight their stories and their books. So I hope they see it that way as well. All right, that's my intro. Today I'm reading something from a collection called Grand Union Stories by Zadie Smith. It is published by Penguin Press. It was published in 2019. She inscribes it. It says for Maud. Again, it is Zadie Smith. New book called Grand Union. And, I know the news is dominated by COVID, and but today it's also dominated by the fact that lynching exists in America still. So I dedicate this to Ahmed. This is called Downtown. A great Austrian painter, he lives in a forest in Hungary, came by the apartment one day with his daughters, both red-headed with pigtails, pale-faced, silent. They wore the kind of clothes you can't buy in any shop. You have to get them delivered direct from the turn of the century. Fucking angels, both of them. Meanwhile, my kids raged around the place, dressed as tiny long-distance truckers, hyped up on sour gummies. They clung to their tablets as if to items necessary for their very survival. Colostomy bags, say. But I refuse to be ashamed. Like everyone else in America these days, I stand in my truth. On the other hand, he is a terrific painter. Of all the living painters, he is the most livingest, and also the most painterly. About 4 years ago, he found a whole new vernacular to the point that nobody sees much point in painting anymore. And so he has somehow both revivified painting and killed it off simultaneously. Of course, we're all terribly jealous. His occasional visits to the city mean an awful lot, and I was honored this time to be the one to host him and his pair of silent angels. I'd invited a few of my downtown crowd to touch the hem of his garment. But when he walked in with his girls, we all saw straight away that there would be no garment touching, and no way would he agree to come to Cafe Loop with us to chew on some tough schnitzel and get blasted to the early hours. He's the real deal, and therefore, like his daughters, mostly silent. Honestly, it is how I imagine it might be to have Schopenhauer round to tea. An honor and a privilege, sure, but socially pretty hard work. He stayed about an hour and a half, said maybe 2 paragraphs of human words, none of which turned out to be metaphysical or existential or even aesthetic. How to get to X or Y on the L, at which hotel he was staying, when and where the children might eat. Long silences in between. Finally, it was time to go. At the doorway, he said, as if it had just occurred to him, I don't understand how you can live here and be an artist among all this social noise and all of these people. I myself live in an Hungarian forest. It was the kind of statement calculated to drive me into a frenzy of self-hatred. I thanked him for his inquiry and his Anne, and pointed him in the direction of the L. Then I sent everyone home and got in a funk for a few days. The New York public school calendar does not recognize funks, personal, existential, artistic, or otherwise. School starts on September 4th, and that's that. The only way to get out of it is to take an ordinary belt, tie it round your neck, loop it round a door handle, and then sit suddenly upon the floor. Although this method likely won't get your kid out of having to turn up on that first day, it will at least mean you don't have to take them. It was September 4th. I had to take them. In the line to get through the school gates, a momentous line which snakes from Cafe Loop all the way down 6th Avenue like a tapeworm of the devil, a parent started talking to me about his family's transformative summer break to the jungles of Papua New Guinea. It had taken 3 planes to get there. They'd gone to bed with monkeys and woken up with sloths, and the whole trip had been utterly transformative. Transformative to escape the American situation. Transformative for him personally, and for his wife, and for the children, but especially for him. Transformative. I peered at this dude very closely. I hadn't seen him since last September 4th, but to my painterly eye, he didn't appear especially transformed. Seemed like much the same asshole. On the sad, childless walk home, I heard a very old white lady outside Citarella exclaim loudly into her phone, "But he's not my friend, he's my driver." To which a tall boy in sequined culottes with a Basquiat fro, who happened to be passing, replied, "Lady, you are GOALS goals." My concern about both jungles and forests is that you can't really imagine anything like that happening in them. I was in such a funk, I left town for a few days, taking a train down the eastern seaboard. I read E.M. Cioran and agreed with him when he said he agreed with Joseph Pla, who had previously agreed with himself that we are nothing, but it's hard to admit it. In the Potomac, at 7 a.m, I saw 4 men in a little canoe, all facing forward, with a heroic cast to their faces. You'd have thought they were bringing a body back from a fatal duel. I watched as their craft silently moved through the water and the fog past the Washington Monument. At the bow, a single pilot light. It was all so beautiful. It was a symbol of something. I considered looking into local forest real estate, but I missed the city. By the time I got back, I spent longer away than I'd thought. Cafe Loop had closed. Dr. Ford was testifying, and the combination of these events was causing mass hysteria below 14th Street. The cafe had actually closed in the summer, the very same day somebody, the city, had installed a large yellow megaphone at the crossroads of Greenwich and 6th, at which megaphone, what happens is, when you press the button beside whatever historic Greenwich Village writer's name is by that particular button, well, what happens is you hear them reading a few lines of their writing, thus affirming the past cultural significance of the village despite all present evidence to the contrary. You can press Willa Cather. You can press Amiri Baraka. You can press Frank O'Hara. You can press Jimmy Baldwin. I could go on. But because of the culturally insensitive timing, what was actually happening as we walked by was a crazy young man with a fashion haircut was running up to the megaphone at intervals and screaming into it, "Cafe Loop has closed! Cafe Loop has closed!" Me and my kids sat down on the bright red wrought iron furniture the city set up at that traffic circle and watched him go, "Cafe Loop has closed." Then he'd run down the street and you'd think that was the end of it. But a minute later, he'd be back, tight white jeans, all sweaty, fashion hair whipping around in the breeze, still screaming, "Cafe Loop has closed. This is not a drill. Cafe Loop has closed." My son asked me if the young man was sick in the head, which is our downtown euphemism for batshit crazy. But my daughter, who is very, very savvy, said, "No way, look at his clothes." I thought that was an interesting answer. It meant she was becoming an American. It meant she now refused to believe rich people can be batshit crazy. On Sunday, I went to Black Church to worship Monty Love and Dead Prez, featuring Jay. The minister led us through the catechism. Moni in the middle. Where's she at? In the middle. Amen to that. Then we moved on to the body of the sermon, which was on our daily struggle. You don't like that, do ya? You fucked up the hood. Uncle right back to ya. Hell yeah. You know we're tired of starving. And lo, I was in awe. To heareth the mode in which Dead Prez doth breaketh it down economically, seeingeth the whole game from top to bottom. Maybe there is no such game in a Hungarian forest, but I don't live in a Hungarian forest. I live right here, and I was listening to the stone cold truth. I was deeply moved. We came together in prayer. We prayed for Sandra Bland, Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Michael Brown. We did not stop there, but I'm practicing an economy of form. And the minister took us all in his embrace in a human chain. And he did say, now we shall come together in prayer for this young child who was shot because she was Black. And God help me, but I broke the chain. I said, see what you've done there is you've transformed an act of the perpetrator into a characteristic of the target. You've turned one person's actions into another person's being. I said, you don't say to a witch, the reason they're dunking you is because you're a witch. You say, the reason they're dunking you is these motherfuckers believe in witchcraft. Their whole society is based on it. Nobody put a spell on them. They produce witchcraft every day, collectively, together. Their whole reality is constructed on a belief in witchcraft. Well, Black Church got what I was saying, but it wasn't anything they hadn't heard before. And plus, they didn't feel it was particularly helpful in the present moment, what with witches getting dunked right, left, and center, every fucking place you looked. The minister took me aside and said, "Now, you're not American, are you? So you're kind of talking out your ass, if you'll excuse my technical religious language." And I said, "Minister, you're absolutely right. I am from the Caribbean side of things. And like the pesky Africans, we haven't yet learned the catechism fully. It takes years and years of training to fully concede you are a witch. But I'm amenable. I can be taught." Two of my aunts came to town just in time for Brett to make his case. Being Jamaican ladies of a certain dimension, we took up a lot of the sidewalk and enjoyed ourselves thoroughly. We started walking in Harlem and headed downtown. But my aunts still have the habit of making a little note in a calfskin notebook every time they see a glorious individual from the diaspora. And by the time we got to Green Street, they'd seen 700 painters, 379 video and conceptual artists, about 800 writers, an infinity amount of musicians, 47 sculptors in various materials, a whole load of doctors and entertainment lawyers, plenty yoga teachers, and so on and whatnot, plus a former president, Lyle Ashton Harris, John Legend, Hilton Als, and Spike Lee himself. I said, "Ladies, you're going to wear out those notebooks. You might as well try and take it all in your stride. We haven't even got to Brooklyn." Of course, I could have taken them elsewhere, but they come from elsewhere, and I wanted to show them the sparkling lights like any good niece on the tourist trail. My aunts gave me the side eye. They folded their arms under their mighty bosoms. They said, "Dear yellow-bone niece, don't be hurrying us on our holidays. Let us take our sweet time. Maybe we were made witches, but this beautiful globe-stretching coven you're a part of is what we did with what was done to us. It is our own blessed creation, and a mighty glorious business it is too. Therefore, hush up. Let us enjoy it while we're here. Now, do you know where Lorraine Hensbury's plaque is, or do you not?" Anyway, by the time we got to the tip of the island, they were in high racial spirits and didn't mind too much settling into a corner booth and watching the proceedings from Washington on a massive TV hung above the bar. Now, rape is a common in the history of our family, as whatever is common in your family is common in yours. So what my aunt said next, I take to have a certain authority. They said, "This might look like a war between men and women, but what this really is the last siege of a ruling class. See Brett up there making that little bitch baby face? See that? That's the face a baby makes when you try and take his rattle away. We've had many, many babies, so we're familiar. America being the rattle in this analogy. He thinks he deserves to do whatever he wants with that rattle, and women are simply a subclause in that arrangement. Remember when we pressed the button on that crazy yellow megaphone? When we heard blessed Leroy Jones cry out, 'The nation is like ourselves.' But dear yellow-bone niece, as we have explained, we are on holiday and we are here to have a good time. Can't we go dancing now?" We danced for 4 days, which turned out to be the exact length of the investigation. And by the time my aunt's taxi pulled in at JFK, Brett had proved once again that whenever a young Brett is born in these United States, born with a dream, that dream can truly come true. Yes, sir. If your baby Brett really puts his mind to it, if he believes, if he has faith, if he is a he, And if he is called Brett, he can do whatever it is he puts his mind to. And that goes double for all you Troys, Kips, Trips, Bucks, and Chads. Well, we were reeling. And I'm not the conspiratorial type, but it did seem a bit suspicious that just as Brett was getting sworn in, everybody beneath 14th Street got an email informing them that Cafe Loop was reopening. I think even a true artist living in a Hungarian forest can imagine that in the circumstances, this felt like the best news any of us had had in the longest time. I tried on 4 different outfits and then just went ahead and wore them all. I ran through the doors. It was packed to the rafters. But once you got over the incredible crush of human bodies, it was impossible not to notice that not a thing had changed. The wallpaper was the same. The waiters were the same. The food was still not especially good. The tables were, as usual, flung randomly around the place, and everyone still thought the Austrian painter had either opened the door to a new possibility in painting or destroyed the possibility of painting altogether. The only difference was that instead of drinking our usual martinis while discussing this infinite subject, everybody was drinking beer and clinking beers and telling their waiters as they served more beer, "Sometimes I drank too much. Sometimes others did. I liked beer. I still like beer." I suppose that kind of thing is why real artists live in Hungarian forests. But I live downtown, so I took my seat at a series of different tables. The whole point of Cafe Loop is it's a movable feast, and told everyone I met that the next time they saw me in this godforsaken joint or black church or anywhere else for that matter, I'd have shed my green card and become a citizen, because really, what the fuck? And the great thing about Cafe Loop is nobody rolled their eyes or pointed out the delicate matter of a new citizen's eligibility for certain national art prizes until I was way down 6th Avenue and couldn't hear a thing. That's Zadie Smith from a collection called Grand Union, published by Penguin? Yeah, Penguin Press in 2019. I'm going to read something else from this later on this week. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you have a great afternoon. We still have some sunshine with some gray clouds coming in, but we have sunshine. So get out there and breathe deep. Take care, stay strong, and we'll see you tomorrow at 3. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Dad. Bye, Mom, if you're there. Bye. Maybe Lars. Bye, LT. Peace out.